E is for Evergreen. Written by Marie and Roland Smith and illustrated by Linda Holt Iris. It's a Washington alphabet. This helps us understand everything that's going on in our state of Washington. So let's see what we learned today. A Washington alphabet. A is for apple, so many on a tree, crisp and ripe and ready to pick, plenty for you and me. Washington is the nation's top apple-producing state. The apple was selected as the state fruit in 1989, and it is the most recognized symbol of Washington worldwide. Americans eat about 20 pounds of fresh apples a year. 6 out of 10 are Washington apples. We eat apples every day, huh? Yeah. B is for Bigfoot. People wonder to this day if they are fact or fiction. It's difficult to say. There's also a Boeing aircraft up there. Bigfoot is a cryptid. A cryptid is an animal that is believed to exist but hasn't been proven to exist scientifically. Cryptozoology is the study of cryptids. Encounters with Bigfoot in the Pacific Northwest have been ongoing for hundreds of years. Wow. All right, B is also for Boeing. The company Boeing is in Seattle. After attending the first U.S. air races in Los Angeles, he became fascinated with flight and airplanes. His interest would eventually lead to the beginning of the Boeing company that make airplanes. All right, C is for Columbia River. Through our state it flows, other rivers adding to it along the way it grows. While sailing around the world in 1792, Captain Robert Gray found the Columbia River and named it after his ship, the Columbia Redivia. Starting at the base of the Canadian Rockies, the river flows down and across Washington for more than 1,200 miles before joining to the Pacific Ocean. You can see that it's also the borderline for Washington and Oregon. Right there's Astoria. Letter D. Washington has a dragon. It's tiny, but it can fly. Dragonfly starts with D. How many can you spy in the picture? I believe there's 3. The green darner dragonfly became the official state insect in 1997 after students at Crestwood Elementary in Kent brought the idea of a state insect to the legislature. Oh, I didn't know that. Children all over the state voted and the green darner dragonfly won. Cool. E is for the Evergreen State. Forests of old growth and rain, our nickname comes from nature's unbroken chain. So we live in the Northwest, and it is what we call a temperate rainforest because we get a whole lot of rain, but unlike a tropical rainforest, it doesn't stay very warm. So we still have a whole lot of vegetation thanks to all that water. Washington's nickname is the Evergreen State because of its abundant forests. Always good to go outside, especially the Olympic National Forest has temperate rainforest and old growth forest. Some parts of these forests are both temperate rainforest and old growth combined. Interesting. F. F is for our state flag with the face of a president, even though George Washington was never a resident. George Washington, it says 1889, that's when we became a state. And here you have a picture of a fish. Fish is for the steelhead trout, Washington state fish. Has a silver gray spotted back and a white belly with a stripe of an opalescent pink down the middle. Wow. F is also for Father's Day, started in 1910 by Sonora Louise Smart Dodd from Spokane to honor her father, a Civil War veteran. Cool. Didn't know that either. Letter G. G is for Goldendale Observatory. This is a place to gaze at all the stars and planets, a place that will amaze. The Goldendale Observatory State Park got its start from 4 amateur astronomers who built a 24-inch Cassegrain reflecting telescope and wanted a home for it. That kind of telescope is a wide-angle reflecting telescope that uses 2 mirrors. They donated it to the town of Goldendale. The town built an observatory upon a 2,100-foot high hill, and it's the nation's largest public telescope and can be used by anyone who wants to gaze at the stars. Well, we need to go there. H is for horses, a Native American breed. Appaloosa came from the Palouse Hills, known for their beauty, grace, and speed. The Palouse and the Nez Perce tribes lived in the area that eventually became Washington, Oregon, and Idaho. We have very rich Native American ancestry in this area. Known for their great horsemanship, they were thought to be first tribes to breed horses for specific traits. Their beautiful spotted horses were known for their endurance, intelligence, speed, and gentle nature. The horses were originally called Palouse horses, named after the Palouse River, but it was later changed to the Appaloosa. Very cool. I is for islands, Bainbridge, Cyprus 2, San Juan, Lopez, Whidbey, Orcas. Can you name a few? The water between Washington and Canada is made up of the Strait of Juan de Fuca, the Strait of Georgia, the Hood Canal, and Puget Sound. Whidbey Island, the largest island in this area, measures 45 miles in length. The San Juan Islands are located in the northern reaches of Puget Sound. There are about 175 islands in this group. Washington has the largest ferry system in the United States to move travelers between islands and mainland. Something very cool to do this summer is to go on those ferries, because guess what? You can sometimes see some nature, some whales, definitely some sea lions, some river otters. We've seen all kinds of nature. And you get to see pelicans and other kind of birds as well. And the beloved Seahawk. J is for justices. These 9 rule supreme. William O. Douglas was on their team. William Orville Douglas grew up in Yakima, and at the early age, he survived an attack of polio that left him physically weak. He vowed to improve his mind and worked hard to strengthen his muscles, and he came to love the outdoors after spending many hours hiking and exploring the mountains of Washington. He graduated from Whitman College in Walla Walla and wrote many books on the Pacific Northwest. Oh, we'll have to look that up. K is for kites. See thousands at Long Beach, children run and chase as they fly out of reach. Every year, Long Beach holds International Kite Festival, which is the largest kite festival in the Western Hemisphere. It is held on the Long Beach Peninsula, about 28 miles of the continuous beach. About 150,000 people come to fly their kites or just to watch. Right now, because of COVID, I don't think that they're participating, but they do have a lot of people who are still using kites. It says for the first known kites came from China 2,000 years ago. L is for Landis. It never had been done. Seattle chose a lady mayor, the country's #1. So Bertha Knight Landis was elected mayor of Seattle in 1926 and was the first woman to lead a major American city. A wife and mother of 3, she ran a platform on municipal housekeeping, vowing to clean up city government. She offered $1 a year to anyone who would pledge to report reckless driving. Her single term ended in 1928, but she remained a civic leader and role model for women. This is a person we need to get her poster on our walls. M is for Mother Joseph. She worked hard to find a way to serve the sick and the poor. April 16 is Mother Joseph Day. I did not know that. Mother Joseph and 4 other sisters of the Providence arrived at Fort Vancouver in 1856 to begin a mission for caring for the sick, the old, and the poor. Mother Joseph built 11 hospitals, 7 academies, 5 Indian schools, and 2 orphanages. Wow. Students from Vancouver brought attention to her work before the state legislature, and in April 16, 1999, was chosen as a day to recognize the honor Mother Joseph on the occasion of 176th year of her birth. Mother Joseph also represents Washington in the National Statuary Hall in Washington, D.C., along with Marcus Whitman. Who is Marcus Whitman? He established the Walatupu Mission in 1836. Narcissa, his wife, was one of the first white women in the Oregon Territory. 1836, very long history here. N is for the Nuggets. In the end of the Yukon Trail, a lucky few found gold, but thousands went and failed. What do you know about the gold rush, the Yukon Valley? In July 17, 1897, the steamboat Portland sailed into Seattle Harbor with 2 tons of gold and news of a gold strike. Gold was found on the small Klondike River, which joins the Yukon River at Dawson City, Canada. From 1897 to 1898, tens of thousands of people from around the world stopped in Seattle to purchase food, clothing, equipment, pack animals, steamship tickets for the trip north. The merchants that provided the goods and services ended up with more gold than the binders did. The Klondike Gold Rush National Historical Park, located in downtown Seattle, honors the state's starting point for the miners going to the Yukon goldfields. Okay, Yukon being in Canada. Okay. And it says N is also for Nordstrom. John Nordstrom was one of the miners of the Klondike. He came back with gold and started a shoe store with Carl Whalen. Today, Nordstrom is a fun place to shop. Okay, cool. I didn't know that either. O is for Olympia. Who's been to the Capitol? We have. They have pages there that are volunteers to come and give you free tours. So if you show up there, depending on the day, you can get a tour of the legislation process. They've got a big law system in place where you get to go and watch the people, and then they'll explain what's going on. It's very cool. Olympia is Washington's capital city. It is on the southern tip of Puget Sound with a view of the Olympic Mountains across the water to the north and Mount Rainier to the east. Explorers and fur traders traveled to the Puget Sound early in the 1800s. Back then, it was home to the Native Americans whose villages had occupied the site for thousands of years. They called it the Black Bear Place. George Washington Bush was the leader of the first settlers in the Puget Sound area, and it was the first African American to settle in the territory. He brought his family west by wagon train in 1844. Besides taking care of their 5 sons, George and his wife, Isabel, helped children who became orphaned while on the trip west. Wow, he settled near Olympia in an area called Bush Prairie. That's very cool. P is for the Peace Arch. On our border, it stands, a symbol of the unity between our 2 common lands. The Peace Arch is located in Blaine, Washington, up north, and White Rock, British Columbia. The arch was built to honor a century of peace between America and Canada. This border is the largest, longest undefended border in the world. The words, "May these gates never be closed," is written on the bronze gates that are always open. Also written on the U.S. side of the arch is "Children of the Common Mother." Written on the Canadian side is "Brethren dwelling together in unity." It's very cool. P is also for the Pacific Ocean. It is the western border of Washington State. Washington has 150 miles of coastline. Q is for Quinault, an Indian reservation, one of many on our state, each a sovereign nation. Thousands of years ago, Native Americans named the Queets, Quillets, Hoes, Macas, lived north of the Quinault River. To the south of the river lived the Copalis, the Hump Tulips, the Wishkah, the Chinook, the Chehalis tribes. When the Native Americans moved onto the Quinault Reservation, they all were considered members of the Quinault tribe. The Quinault Indian Nation established an elective government ruled by tribal council in 1922. There are 8 Indian reservations in Washington. Reservations are land that are recognized by the federal government as separate sovereign nations. Native American tribes are able to control the land, the natural resources, and education within reservation boundaries and create their own laws. Pretty cool. One of the only people allowed to do that in America. R is for Rainier, Washington's highest peak. Mountaineers climb its slopes for adventure that they seek. Who's been to Mount Rainier? It's a very beautiful mountain to visit, very large, and and it's not expensive, and it's not that far away for most of us that live up here, so it's definitely worth a hike or two. Mount Rainier is 14,410 feet high. It is Washington's highest peak. Before 1792, when British Captain George Vancouver first saw the mountain and named it for its friend, Rear Admiral Peter Rainier, Native Americans called it Tahoma. The first documented climb of the summit of Mount Rainier was in 1870 by Hazard Stevens and Philemon Van Trump. Since then, it has become a popular mountain for climbers. In 1890, Yelm schoolteacher Faye Fuller became the first woman documented to climb that mountain. Mount Rainier was declared a national park in 1899. The Wonderland Trail is a 93 loop around the mountain that takes about 10 days to walk. What's cool about that also is that when she did that, Faye Fuller, she was wearing a dress and heels. Pretty cool. I don't know who else can scale a mountain in heels. S is for Seattle and the Space Needle. Start with the letter S. Travel 605 feet to the top for a view that will impress. The Space Needle sits in an area called the Space Center, Seattle Center. The 605-foot structure was built in 1962, Seattle World's Fair, to symbolize our future in space. It is the most recognized symbol of Seattle. An observation deck encircles the top and allows a 360-degree view of the city. If you've been up there, there's a restaurant, and that actually rotates around. On a clear day, views of Mount Rainier, the Olympic Mountains, Mount Baker, Lake Union, Lake Washington, Elliott Bay can all be seen. All the trees of the and green of the water confirm that its name is Emerald City. Come on in, just go ahead and put your stuff down. I'm reading a book. Go ahead and put your stuff in your cubby. On your desk is a new packet. Go ahead and start looking at your new packet, okay? All right, T is for Tri-Cities. Before these cities were made, this was a gathering place where people can trade. Pasco, Kennewick, and Richland are known as the Tri-Cities. It is the 4th largest populated area in Washington. The Lewis and Clark expedition camped in the Tri-Cities area in October of 1805. The expedition made detailed descriptions of plant and animal life and documented the Columbia River and its tributaries. This area was an important gathering place for trade among the Palouse, Walla Walla, Wanapum, Yakima, and Umatilla Indians. Lewis and Clark met with local tribes and gave them Jefferson medals as a symbol of peace. The expedition stopped here again on their return in 1806. Another cool thing about Lewis and Clark is that they have their journals on display in the first library ever made in Pennsylvania. I had a chance to look at it and I was very overwhelmed because I saw a picture, a hand-drawn picture of our fish and other things that I knew to be normal in my world, and they were explaining it back to the people in the East Coast, letting them know what kind of wildlife we had here, and I thought that was very cool to see 200 years ago people were talking about my state. All right, U is for the U.S. Navy. Their ships come and go, carriers on the surface, submarines down below. Mackenzie, I'm still reading. Shh. All right, Navy facilities and property total more than 28,000 acres of land in Washington. Naval Station Everett is home to 3 destroyers, 3 frigates, and 1 nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. Naval Submarine Base Bangor is home port for the Trident nuclear submarines. Whidbey Island Naval Air Station was built on a base for seaplane patrol operations and is also the center for search and rescue crews. Puget Sound Naval Shipyard in Bremerton, founded in 1891, is the largest shipyard on the West Coast. It is also home port for a nuclear aircraft carrier, 2 nuclear cruisers, and 3 fleet support ships. Part of Puget Sound Naval Base is a National Historic Landmark. That's very cool. There are places where you can visit and you can tour the local submarines and ships. All right, V is for volcano, Mount St. Helens and her blast. What a big disaster. We hope that it was her last. On May 18, 1980, Mount St. Helens erupted with a force of 21,000 atomic bombs and leveled over 200 square miles of forest. It killed 60 people, thousands of animals, and hundreds of thousands of birds and fish. Mount St. Helens became a national volcanic monument in 1983. Washington has 5 major volcanoes: Mount Baker, Glacier Peak, Mount Rainier, Mount Adams, and Mount St. Helens. These volcanoes are part of the Cascade Range. Definitely want to look that up. Look at the Cascade Range. It's very impressive. Most states don't get to have that many mountains in one place. Cascade Range, a volcanic group of mountains that stretch from southwestern British Columbia to northern California. Each of these volcanoes, except for Mount Adams, have erupted within the last 250 years. Volcanoes do not erupt at regular intervals, and no one knows when they will erupt next. Exciting! My mother remembers Mount St. Helens exploding. I was not born yet, but I was close to being born. And she said that it looked like snow on their cars because ash had fallen everywhere, and it just looked like an entire bed of snow everywhere. But it was ash. A lot of people coughed. W is for western hemlock. Here birds sing and hop, these tiny goldfinch right up near the top. The willow goldfinch, American goldfinch, is also called and became Washington's state bird in 1951. And it has a very pretty song, and it is a delicate bird about 5 inches tall. We do some bird watching here in the summertime. X is for the name of this big star, Jimi Hendrix. Born in Seattle, sang and played guitar. Jimi Hendrix definitely should be in your iPod. He was born on November 25th, 1942 in Seattle. He was 11 years old when he was given his first guitar. He had an ear for music and was a teenager that taught himself to play guitar by listening to records. You can experience the Music Project located in Seattle Center, and it was built by Paul Allen, a co-founder of Microsoft. The EMP, a music museum that tells the story of popular music in America. And there is a Hendrix Gallery at the museum that tells the story. All right, Y. Y is for Yakima. Y is for the Yakima Valley, where sun and irrigation help produce fruit and vegetables that feed our entire nation. Yakima fruit is likely to be found in any grocery store anywhere nearby. In 1852, missionaries Charles Pandozzi and Louis de Urbamas, along the Yakima tribes people, dug the first irrigation ditch in the Yakima Valley. The ditch was filled with water. Irrigation eventually changed the natural sagebrush desert into a valley known for its fruit bowl of the nation. The Yakima Valley is the largest producer of Washington apples. Peaches, cherries, along with other fruits and vegetables are also grown here. Z is for zoos. Our state has 3 animals from around the world for everyone to see. There is the Woodland Park Zoo in Seattle, Point Defiance Zoo and Aquarium in Tacoma, and the Northwest Trek in Neelum. I have been to all 3, and they're all fantastic. My favorite probably is the Northwest Trek. It is totally worth the price of admission. There is a actual shuttle that takes you around like a live zoo, an action-packed zoo where you go in the shuttle and you go around and you get to see a lot of animals in their natural habitat. Very cool. All right, the end. This is a very lengthy book. I only read partial information on here, but go ahead and get this book for yourself so you can read all the fan facts, and then I would watch YouTube videos to explain each of the different sites around Washington further.